All right, let's jump right in. Right now, higher education is going through a massive shift, and it's all because of generative AI. You know, tools like ChatGPT, they aren't just changing how students write an essay. They're basically redrawing the entire map of what it means to be a student.
Think about it. For generations, the rules of the game in school were crystal clear. It was all about your own individual effort, right? The authorship was clear, it was your name on the paper. And instruction? That was led by the teacher. But today? Well, today's reality looks completely different. We've got AI assistants everywhere, the boundaries of who wrote what are getting super blurry, and students are learning in a much more independent way. So it begs the question, in a world where the old rules just don't fit, what does academic integrity even mean anymore?
To really wrap our heads around this, we need to look at this key concept called cultural lag. The idea is pretty simple, but it's powerful. This isn't really a crisis of cheating. What's actually happening is that the technology has just sprinted so far ahead, so fast, that our social norms, our rules, our teaching methods, they've all been left in the dust, just struggling to catch up.
And that lag, that gap, it's creating a genuine crisis of culture. See, when the official rulebook doesn't match what's happening in the real world, you get a whole lot of confusion and, frankly, a lot of mistrust. That shared understanding that's supposed to exist between students and teachers about what effort and originality even look like, it just starts to fall apart.
And make no mistake, this isn't some niche thing affecting a few tech-savvy students. A recent investigation in Israel found that over 90% of university students reported using generative AI. Just let that sink in. This isn't some trend that's on its way, it's a systemic, global shift that has already happened.
So this new reality, it puts educators at a huge crossroads. What's their role now? Do they become gatekeepers, trying to police the old boundaries and stamp this out? Or do they evolve and become guides, helping students figure out how to navigate this new, pretty wild terrain? This isn't just a small policy tweak, it's a fundamental choice about what teaching is even for.
You know, the immediate reaction often leads people down two really problematic paths. Path number one is over-enforcement. More surveillance, more restrictions, basically treating AI like it's the enemy. The second path is the complete opposite, disengagement. Just pretend it's not happening, maybe lower expectations a bit, and avoid those tough conversations. The thing is, both of these are dead ends. They just break down trust, and they're totally unsustainable.
So if playing whack-a-mole's out and looking the other way is out, what's left? Well, there's a third path, but it requires a really deep evolution. Faculty have to shift their whole identity from being just conveyors of information to becoming designers of learning environments. Their role changes from being the source of all answers to being a facilitator, someone who actually guides students to engage with these powerful new tools in a way that's both ethical and critical.
And that, of course, leads us to the big practical question. It's one thing to say we need to change, but how do we actually do it? How does a teacher, day to day, make that switch from being a gatekeeper to being a guide? So let's crack open the new academic playbook. We're not talking about abstract theories anymore. We're talking about concrete, actionable strategies that educators and schools can start using right now to build a new foundation for learning and integrity.
Okay, first things first, you have to completely rethink the assignment itself. Instead of just grading that one final thing they hand in, you start focusing on the process. You look at drafts, revision histories, maybe even have them write a little reflection on how they worked with an AI. Then you make the prompts personal. Ground them in that student's actual life and experiences, something a generic AI just can't fake. And finally, you lean into it. You actually make critiquing or improving AI-generated text part of the assignment.
Here's another really powerful strategy, just a simple AI disclosure policy. This one little change flips the whole dynamic on its head. Suddenly, using AI isn't something you hide, it's something you declare openly. It puts the responsibility for fact-checking and originality right back on the student. And most importantly, it makes transparency a normal, standard part of the process, not some kind of guilty admission.
So how do you make that disclosure policy really work? With a rubric, an ethics rubric. This takes all the guesswork out of it for everybody. Now, students and teachers are on the same page about what a good human-AI partnership looks like. Was the disclosure clear? Did the student actually think critically about what the AI gave them? And here's the key, where is the student's own voice?
Where is their human contribution? It aligns everyone on what success actually looks like now.
When you step back, you see that all these strategies, the new assignments, the disclosure policies, the rubrics, they're all pointing toward a much bigger goal. We're moving beyond just trying to manage a problem. We're starting to cultivate an entirely new core skill, the ability to learn with AI. And that is going to be the central competence for our augmented future.
So what does this new skill, this hybrid competence, actually look like? Well, it's a few things. It's prompt literacy, knowing how to ask the AI the right questions to get what you need. It's analytical discernment, being able to look at what the AI spits out and know if it's accurate or even makes sense. It's workflow integration, learning how to blend your own expertise with what the machine can do. And of course, it's ethical decision-making, knowing how to use these tools fairly and responsibly. This isn't just a nice-to-have skill anymore. This is what's going to define a top-tier professional in pretty much any field.
So ultimately, we have to realize that the debate over if we should use AI in education, well, that debate is over. That ship has sailed. The real question, the much more interesting and important question for all of us now is, how do we learn to think with it? How do we build that partnership in a way that's responsible and critical and creative? Answering that, well, that's the new core mission of education itself.